Next up, we have a panel discussion. So we're going to be relying a lot on you guys in the audience for some help with this panel discussion. But a burn boss's thought process from start to finish. And kind of the idea behind this was, we know there's a lot of seasoned burn bosses here amongst us in attendance today, but there's also maybe some new upcomers and CPBMs or private land persons that are looking to get to that point of becoming a burn boss in the future. So we have a few gentlemen here for the panel discussion. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and a little bit about their qualifications and background on what made them become a burn boss or want to be a burn boss. And then we'll have a few questions for them to answer. And then we'll open it up to everyone in the audience to help us ask any questions that you would like to. So I'll turn it over to the gentlemen and let them introduce themselves.
Good day, everybody. My name is Erdman. Just to introduce myself and give a little bit of background qualifications. Born and raised in central Pennsylvania. Alcohol pretty much a big part of my life growing up. I didn't take the hiking and I was go to agree with kind of same thing. I didn't have a lot of direction after I graduated from high school. I didn't get that direction until I was and then I realized like how much the natural environment was part of my life. There was a soldier that I was deployed with that forester that kind of talked with and decided that was a great career path. Something that I could put my energy forward to and something that I had great desire. So I got back from Afghanistan. I enrolled in Penn College of Technology, much like the gentleman that I was just speaking. Got my associate's degree there, carried that forward to a bachelor's degree on Penn State campus. And I was fortunate enough to get a forest technician position from Bureau of Forestry in the Susquehanna State Forest for a season. It was like almost nearly a statewide retirement. Worked there for a season and decided I didn't need it, but I wanted to go a different career path. And wanted to become a land manager with the Game Commission. And in order at that time to become a land manager, you had to go to a game warden first. You have to go to training school for a game warden, rolling the dice whether or not a position is going to come up as a land manager, put in for it. But that paid off. Within about a year and a half of being game warden, I became a land manager. So that really started my career in prescribed fire. I've been working since 2012 to 2020. It took me to RX with PA standards. That's, I guess, considered fast. So not very fast track. That's what it was. I haven't really counted or kept track, but I probably have at least 100 burns that I participated in prescribed fire. I'm guessing between 20 and 30 as an RXP2 that I've led since.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Plume, Bureau of Forestry, DC. Kind of how I got my start in general in fire with the agency. Kind of started as soon as I graduated high school. I got kind of tied in with the local fire department. And one of the members in the department turned out to be a pretty important mentor to me. He worked for the Bureau of Forestry as a fire supervisor in the district. Kind of got me down that path. Started out my career with the district as a seasonal forest patrolman in 1994. Did a couple of different jobs in there. I was a ranger for a bit, then I actually, so the roles kind of reversed. So when I was a ranger, my mentor became a ranger supervisor. I took his fire. So it was kind of an irony of terms. So I did the fire supervisor position for 20 plus years, and then just recently switched over and took another position as state special investigation. Kind of how I got my start, in fire, it was a roundabout way. The prescribed burning aspect of it, it was, I don't want to say it was a voluntold thing, but it was a volunexpected thing, was the primary fire supervisor of the district. You know, one of my supervisors, he was interested in prescribed burning, really kind of pushed me, encouraged me, I guess I should say, in that direction. Before any of the standards were put in place, we were just kind of shooting. Another fellow from the district, we went down to Virginia, went through their certified burn manager program, so it was kind of that exposure. That's kind of how I got started. And kind of continued from there. Qualifications wise, so at the national level, I think that's the relevancy of qualifications. Burn Boss 2, Burn Boss 1 trainee, and one of the bureaus is commander. A little bit about it.
Hello, my name is David Cavanaugh. I'm with the Conservancy. My position title is Pennsylvania Fire Program Leader. Only been with the agency, Conservancy, here in Pennsylvania for about 8 months. Little backstory, like I think a lot of you folks here, I kind of grew up in the outdoors, grew up in Wisconsin, spent a lot of time outdoors, and then I kind of made a big shift, right? So I went to Florida as a golf professional. I spent about 8 years as a head teaching professional at a private country club in Naples, Florida. And I wasn't really kind of I wasn't enjoying it so much. Certainly a different culture. I went back to college in like 2008, right? So we all know what happened then. So the course that I was working at shut down, and I just completely went 180. Was in an environmental science course, and I'm like, wow, I can actually make a career out of doing these things that I grew up and loved. So I ended up getting a degree in environmental science in a minor in biology. Started working for an environmental sensitive lands program as a land manager. So I managed about 5,000 acres, and quickly realized that fire is really where I want to go. It's such an amazing tool. Just loved every part of it. So I kind of, a lot of folks, you can kind of be more of a generalist and kind of do both. I just went full focused on fire. Had an opportunity to run a prescribed fire program in Florida. We were a very active program. We burned anywhere from 60 to 70 times a year on our own property, anywhere from 9,000 to 12,000 acres a year. Learned a lot with partners for the Forest Service, Florida State Parks. But I was actually employed by a fire department that ran a prescribed fire program, so I also had a good opportunity to do a lot of wildland fire suppression. My job was about 60% prescribed fire, 40% wildfire suppression. So I had a good opportunity to get a lot of federal calls on the suppression side. So I'm task force qualified, engine boss, heavy equipment boss, firing boss, but actually currently an RXP2 trainee, because like some of the folks talked about yesterday with CPDM programs, that's how Florida burns, CPDM programs. Unless you're a Fed or TNC in Florida, that's everybody's CPDM. So all of my burning in Florida was as a certified prescribed burn manager. Lost just over 200 burns, and I've been participant on over 800 prescribed fires in my career. And I'm currently an RXP2 trainer.
Great. Thanks, guys. So this might be the same for a lot of us that are burn bosses, but kind of typically, what would your burn day process be or look like from start to finish, from in the morning and how that fire progresses throughout the day? If you kind of want to walk through that, and obviously some of it might be a lot of the same stuff for a lot of us, but kind of typically start our day off and walk us through that process.
So my burn day process definitely starts well prior to that. There's a flurry of activity that will happen, especially the day prior. When I was the fire supervisor in the district, I had a little bit more there's a difference whether we were doing a prescribed burn in the district or whether I was. If it was something in the district, I was really heavily involved in all of the planning leading up to finding resources, all that. So there's a lot of stress that comes with that, trying to find all of those folks. So it's not just, the burn day stuff. By that point, most of that should already be lined up. Should be in place, and now we're just putting the plan. It's just making sure, is everybody going to be there? Who didn't show up? All of that, all those unforeseen things that we plan, and something changes. You have to be ready to adjust. So it's, it kind of, and I don't remember who was, it might have been Chris earlier with the ICT4 thing. It's like when I was in the district, I would try to get there early, get all of my stuff, get in a truck, and I wanted to get away from the office because I didn't want to get home. Because I wanted to focus on the things that I needed to focus on, and not. And everybody wants to talk. Everybody has a question. Everybody's gagging up. It's kind of stressful. So I want to get out to the field. I usually try to be there, one of the first ones there, so I can sort of greet everybody as they get there. Just make sure that the plan is going as I can. And just making sure all the weather's, all that's good. There's no traffic accidents, no road closure, all that stuff. It's a lot of playing what if.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that stuff. I'll try not to cover too much. Game commission's obviously a little different the way we're set up in North Central. We have a really healthy burn team. On any given day in the spring, we can have 30 to 50 personnel willing and able to burn across North Central, which is a sixth of the students. And it's gotten more complex over the years because we have 2 RXP2 burn bosses, 2 RXP3 burn bosses within the region. So we're making decisions on what crew is going where. This is all the day before. Like Brian said, my burn day doesn't start that morning. It's well ahead of time, at least the day before. So I'm coordinating with those other burn bosses. Normally we try to prioritize moderate complexity burns, so woods burns first. So I'm coordinating with the other RXP2, and then we always come up with a contingency, like if we get rain or if the site's not ready, conditions aren't good, we'll set up a grass unit somewhere, and then the RXP3s will kind of be on the hook if we fall through with the first one. So that's a lot of coordination between all the resources there, figuring out who we're divvying up. Luckily, we do have kind of like the eastern side of the region, western side, northern, southern, kind of divvy up that way. It's always the folks in the foresters who are basically the single resources that get the most shifted around. Putting in spot weather forecast, making the best call you can on where you're going to go next day, and then getting a tentative go, no-go email out to the crew, hopefully before close of business so that they can see that. But we do try and work on what I'll call maximum flexibility kind of environment. Our crews are experienced enough to know that we send out an email saying, hey, we're going to burn tomorrow. We don't know where, but come in prepared to go somewhere. Sometimes we don't get information out. Sometimes it's the day before, it's a Sunday, more than not, it seems, which doesn't allow that communication beforehand. But it's worked out well, and we have a good culture in North Central and probably across the whole game commission that people are flexible enough to deal with that. But then when the burn day comes around, it's a flurry in the morning to try and get that final go, no-go call out. I'm usually reaching out to the local forester who probably has written the burn plan and, maybe bouncing ideas. It's really nice when everything comes together with conditions that it's an easy call to make. Sometimes you're on either end of the prescription and you have to make a judgment call whether you can burn or you can't. Those are the more important stress. We have tried to push the envelope on the cold end of the prescription, but we try not to push the envelope too much on the hot end for obvious reasons. But after that final go, no go email in the morning comes out by myself or the other burn bosses, try and get that out around 6 o'clock. It's like a little bit of weight off my shoulders. And as the day goes on, it's like less and less weight on my shoulders as a burn boss. Some of these things are getting pushed off and getting accomplished. And then, like Brian said, when it's time for fire, that's really when things, I guess, kind of go into cruise control mode, because we have an experienced crew, we have a good team set up. As long as you did your job as a burn boss, you're going to be in good shape for that burn trouble day.
Yeah, so definitely echo what they said. So much of the burn plan process is done well before you put that test fire roll, before you make that call in the morning. There's just a tremendous amount of planning. As we talk, what would I do what planning goes into a faucet burning? Gosh, I could go all day on this, right? For all of us can. So mine's going to be certainly more Florida central. Part of it is because we had a lot more burn opportunities, lot smaller crews. I was also kind of managing, I was kind of like a fuels manager as well. So the way we kind of operated our burn planning, we just couldn't write the burn plans to the extent that you guys do. I might have 100 units that are kind of prepared for a year, and then Cat 5 hurricane comes through and wipes all of that planning out, and we have to shift completely. So I just can't prepare 200 burn units on my own on an annual basis. So we work with land managers to kind of, part of their unit land management and a unit master plan to develop annually to kind of do more programmatic planning of our burn plans. And then they have burns with our burn plan required by Florida was 10 elements. It's basically a prescription portion of it. And it was like operational tactics, so which is an IMP. So it kind of gave us the flexibility to kind of shift what we were looking to burn, whether it was like seasonality or in every drought. So we're going to completely shift to doing a lot of things that are under interval. Maybe I'm looking at stuff. We've got heavy rains. We had a cold winter. Things didn't dry out till late in the dormant season. Might give me an opportunity to jump into some, first entry burn that we didn't anticipate for the season. So we had lots of conversations. I was out every day. I was fortunate enough to work where my job, I didn't have other responsibility. It was fire. It's all I was thinking about, 365 days a year. I was in a position where I had a Type 6 engine. I was in call, so I was a lot of weekends, a lot of holiday work. But early on, we kind of planned our burns where we kind of put our units kind of in buckets, right? So we think about seasonality. We think about, what burns, like if we've got really good history, we want to keep them in a maintenance phase. So these are ones that we prioritize for our growing season burns. We might add like another layer with KDI using the drought index. We're only going to burn these units this time. So a lot of communication with land managers, resource managers, determining what we're going to look at. And then really, once the date of burn comes, it's really kind of easy. You mitigated all those potential issues ahead of time. You have a good plan in place, and then just kind of operating, just day of tactics based on the burn plan.
Yeah. And like Eric brought up, if you're that burn boss for that day, or maybe you're a fellow burn boss, there's so much stuff going on in the morning that you're trying to take care of. If you have those resources in your area or in your district to be able to bounce questions, if you have a question or another burn boss has a question, that they can utilize you and you guys can talk that through in the morning to make those decisions, whether it is a go, no go based on other elements or your spot forecast. That's really huge to have those in your district or in your region.
Have one real back. So something else that I would have to at least have on my, on my bucket list, part of my responsibilities is wildfire response. If it's a day that we're burning, it's a day I have to worry about wildfires and make sure that we get covered. That all goes into the plan.
For sure, absolutely. So thinking about,
Josh,
Go
I'm
ahead,
gonna
Dan. Yep.
to what you just said as well. So, yeah, I mean, one thing that I realized early on was find some folks that you can trust and utilize them as much as possible, because you can't do everything for you. There's just so many little things that are popping up, and delegate. That's the time. Don't try to take everything on. Pass that along to some folks that you know and trust.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm now thinking about up and coming burn bosses or new burn bosses that are trying to attain that position. Any advice that you could give to them or think about that maybe comes to your mind right off the bat of things to think of as they're working their way up to becoming a burn boss?
So we could talk about this. To kind of summarize it in just a few things, what I would definitely recommend for any upcoming burn bosses and anybody in leadership positions on a burn boss, doesn't matter what it is. If you were part of writing the burn plan, you really need to read that burn. And you need to be comfortable with that burn. If you as the burn boss are not comfortable with the plan, you need to have some conversations to see if there's some things that you can do to mitigate, make some amendments. But it's be very, very familiar with the burn boss. And second, be familiar with the burn unit. That means getting eyes on it. So if you can, definitely get eyes on it ahead of time. It's always much better. Showing up the day of a burn as the burn boss when you haven't seen it before is extremely stressful. That's just a couple of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are two things I.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'd also, I think those of them have been in the, prescribed fire world long enough, probably knowing that some folks that have been doing this for a long time, and it feels like they're the same burner they were when they were on their fifth burn. They just really haven't progressed, they haven't grown, and there's nothing wrong with them. Maybe they just are very comfortable just running a drink torch. Maybe they're just comfortable at holding. They're really good at holding. So folks that they want to kind of become burn bosses, I tell them, get out there, like look at the whole the big picture. I would usually kind of bring my folks that I was developing, and I would just slowly kind of step them up to different leadership roles and see how they respond. And then it's very important to kind of take it all in. A lot of times I'd ask them a question, even though I heard what happened on the radio, I'd say, hey, what'd they say? And you could tell, I don't know, I wasn't listening. And you could just see a different response, somebody who's really kind of taking it all and understanding, fire from that 30,000 foot level. But the other thing is shadowed a lot of burn bosses. I've been on just a handful of burns here in Pennsylvania, and I've already shadowed 3 burn bosses. And, they all have different styles, but they're all great. So learn from as many burn bosses as you can. Try to get in on as much fire. Like be a student of fire. Really try to learn what's happening out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with any of that stuff. Just some things that I would add is if you are looking to become a burn boss or become senior leadership in fire, just keep in mind it takes time, right? So my journey took 7 years to become a burn boss. And I think it's important to work through all those positions, right? As a burn boss, it's good to know what an FFT2, FFT1 firing boss is doing and able to do, what you're expected to do, and what you are expecting them to do as the person in charge. So give it time, work through those positions, and don't try and skip steps because those steps are important. Also, just to reiterate, finding mentors and other folks that are passionate as burn bosses, and use them on burn days and different things, and ask them questions. If there's anybody in this room that wants to know a burn boss, use your chain of command. Let them know that you have that intention or the desire to move up at some day. Just make sure your boss knows that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with all the suggestions there. And definitely don't rush the process, right? Become a student of fire. Get all the time and fire experience that you can. Don't try and rush the process to become a burn boss. We want to go ahead and open it up to you guys in the audience for any type of comments or anybody looking to come up and be a burn boss or aspire to them. We got some really good gentlemen here to ask some questions about becoming a burn boss. Chris?
So you guys have mentioned, going through your go, no-go checklist, that kind of thing. And a lot of times, there are days that are good for burning, but you're at that higher end of your prescription. Has there been discussion of maybe pushing your test fire later in the day, or like 3, 4 o'clock test fire? Because 9 times out of 10, if you start at 10, 11 a.m., we get those drops in humidity that aren't forecasted. They don't see it coming, but we know it's coming. It drops below your prescription. Has there been discussion of starting the burn later in the day when it comes back into prescription?
So yes, there has been discussion, but there are a lot of hurdles. Not necessarily hurdles that crew have, but maybe the agency has. Human resources, things like that, starting, these folks are, for the game commission, they start their day at 6, 7:30 in the morning. Starting a fire that is going to be in operation as many hours into the evening times is a little bit of a challenge. We have discussed that because it makes a lot of sense. I start in the morning when things are going to get worse, hotter for you, rather than on the cool side when it's going down. We haven't really had much success attempting that.
Yeah, so just to echo there, that's always, especially if it's a hot burn unit. And I know we're going to be on the hot end of the weather prescription. It's something that I have definitely thought about. Some of it's from lessons learned, past mistakes. So there's times I think at least the burns that I've been a part of, when we're trying to adjust, whether it's starting a little bit earlier in the morning or a little bit later in the day, but to try to maybe take that tactical pause in the hottest part of the day, at least be in a spot where we be in a place where we can kind of hang up. There's no black and white answer to what to do, when to do it, or not. It's going to be site dependent, weather dependent, resource dependent, money dependent. There's a lot of factors.
Yeah, so I was fortunate, we just had a lot of units planned. So right off the bat, I knew what units I could plan when we were on the hot end of prescription. So we've already predetermined. We would burn when we were in the double-digit KVIs, drop index, if folks don't know that, and we would burn when a KVI was above 600. We would spend time in the dormant season writing anchor points where we weren't concerned about holding issues. So if we weren't in restrictions, we were burning. The concept of in Florida, you're allotted every day to burn. That's the goal. Now that being said, not every day is a burn day. you know, we felt like we picked most of our opportunities when we would hit 70 burns. And, so, yeah, we were always kind of prepared, be flexible. You know, we found for years, you know, in the summer, we get, early storms running through and rain showers in the morning, people just assumed, oh, get burnt. And we just figured, well, let's try it. So we could get in summertime up to half inch of rain that morning, just wait till around 11:30 noon, and we have great fire effects. But then to take that example to Pennsylvania, I'm gonna call out Andy Weaver. I helped him on a burn. I was just a crew on a grassland burn, and you know, just wasn't gonna carry fire. A lot of folks, and I think it's a good call sometimes just to say, hey, we're not gonna meet objectives. Let's call it. There's nothing wrong with that. But we just kind of set trigger points with conversations about, hey, we think that finding field moisture is going to drop to a certain level, so let's just kind of keep backing up. If we have to cut it off and not do as many units, but let's try. And we waited, and it was a very successful day. We were able to accomplish, I think, all the units. Yeah, it was great. So I think it's nice to be flexible, certainly to a level, because there's a cost to all the resources that you bring in to do the burn. But yeah, try to be as flexible as you can, as long as you still are considering, of course, your objectives.
Yeah, and I'll echo that. I think having multiple burn units in your burn plan, or even just different burn plans across the landscape in the region, we've had success of maybe there's high wind forecast up on the ridges, and we're able to go to a different area and not pick up those wind forecasts or those lower RHs, maybe aspect or elevation. You're looking at all those and having different options around your region or in your district that you're still able to go and get some good fire on the ground for that day.
Yeah, just add to that, Josh. That's a good point. So you know, it's not really a problem here yet, but the hope is it will be. You know, we had to, of course, share the airshed. So there'd be mornings where we were anticipating 1,000-acre unit, and then you know, we could have a day in just our local 4-county district where there might be 20,000 acres being burned that one day. And we were going to be 1,000 of those acres. We were at a county program. Guess who everyone was going to blame that smoke on? It's a lot easier to get a hold of somebody at the county than it is to get a hold of somebody at the state. So it'd be blamed on us. So we would scrap the 1,000-acre burn, maybe go to maybe a 30-acre burn. Not as ideal, but we were still able to accomplish a burn, but without maybe the negative impacts that we would have gotten if we would have done the larger unit.
Great. Another question, Abby?
Sort of a comment related to, I guess, the stress of showing up in the morning and deciding who's going where and organizing all of that. On the wildfire end, it's not predictable. You have a resource plan and that's it. You know what you're going to get into. There is a great deal of stress that comes with that. It's wonderful having a spread fire working environment. But there was still, I remember when we first started with all of this, it was like a spreadsheet. I really want to have Eric elaborate on the team's tools that were put together and that really, from a firefighting perspective, the entire crew now has access to the possible places that they might go and the crew lists where they might go. And so that leadership role doesn't have to be all on Eric. Each firefighter is responsible for their own leadership, anticipating what they might get into for the day, because they have access to maps, they have access to the IAP for the day, and everyone's better prepared. It's a wonderful tool, and I think that really brought us a long way.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I definitely agree with that. I think in all walks of your job life, it's important to use technology to help you out. One aspect that's helped us out in the game commission is Microsoft Teams. I'm not sure who else uses Microsoft Teams. I think a lot of state agencies, Commonwealth does. But we have fire groups, and in the North Central region, we have a statewide fire group now, but it started out as a North Central thing. And we kind of broke the groups up into smaller teams, so we knew from what county who was available, what equipment they had, they were available, yes or no, through whenever they tell out their crew availability. So just little things like that, technology helps tremendously to take care of some of the things that were really time consuming when we started the program, and it has helped us by leaps and bounds to be where we're at today. Yeah, we also use that for file sharing. We have all of our priority document maps, and it's something you can open up from a mobile device. So if you need to look at a map in the field, download to a Benzo on your phone, it can be done pretty much instantaneously.
So just to follow up a little bit with that, a few years ago, what I did with teams, is I created a team for the district, and then there was a prescribed bird channel in that team where I dumped all of the burn plans, the maps, everything was in there. And any time, there was especially the overhead people in leadership roles, anybody that needed access to that, that had access to the plan. Look at the maps, look at the burn plan at a time. Some of the more complex burns that we've done, we've had team meetings, planning meetings before the burn, just to try to make sure everybody was good with the plan and staffing and all that stuff, just to try to do some of that prep.
Absolutely. Question here?
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys could comment on, you talked a lot about planning and through the morning, but do you guys have any, what I'd say, like interagency involvement in your burns or involvement with local fire companies or other local resources? How do you, if you use them, how do you incorporate them? How does that work?
So I'll start off. One of the things that I like to do is, number one, I like to offer opportunities for as many trainings as possible, which isn't part of your agency stuff necessarily, but it kind of ties into that. And I'm always open in sending out invitations to other fire departments. I reach out to them, see if they have anybody that's available. County 911, EMA folks, I've invited dispatchers to come out and maybe not be part of the operational stuff, but at least to see what we're doing on our end and what they're listening to on all phone calls. So I'm
Yeah, so specifically for my role here, my main focus is working partner agencies for burning. So again, I'm new to the position. I'm not entirely sure what that looks like. Here I am offering myself, so please reach out when you all burn. This is the longest period of time I think I went without fire in 15 years. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to get on the fire. But in Florida, yeah, absolutely. We worked hand in hand with the Forest Service. We worked directly with Bureau of State Parks, State Parks. State Parks in Florida, they were like probably the driver of fire. They were probably the biggest agency. I worked with Florida Game Commission, Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, worked with some private landowners. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's critical that we're kind of partnering together, sharing resources.
Yeah, basically the same thing. So for volunteer fire companies, most part of the North Central region, these folks aren't available and they're not interested in my experience. State Game Lands 176, which is only 15 minutes from the closest state college. There's a very active fire company that's Alpha Fire Company. We've had folks from there in the team join us on those days. We've also recently had some folks from state parks, Bureau of State Parks to burn with us. We've invited folks from other forest districts. One that comes to mind is the Shannon State Forest District burn. And it's usually if we have fun stuff going on, like we have fire drones, ignition drones, new stuff. They burn themselves, but it's just something that is kind of new and upcoming. So it's great to have them there on that kind of stuff. But the way we handle them is, we consider it extra resources. We don't put them in the lines, like say you need 12 people minimum for your burn plan. We don't include them in that 12. Anybody coming from outside the need commission would be a bonus.
Question, Dan?
And going back to that operations question. It's usually SOP, I would assume it's gonna get hotter and drier during the day. So do you consider establishing your black when it's cooler in the morning and getting prepared for that hotter and drier conditions later in the day? Versus if you wait until late in the day to start, then you run into evening at dark, smoke issues, laying down, working in the dark with snags. You consider all that before planning for operations for that particular day.
Yeah, that definitely comes into play. Thanks for bringing up the smoke issue too, because that's one thing that I've thought about. I don't really know how it plays. It may not be an issue everywhere, but in State College for State Game 176, I don't get away with socking in everybody with smoke overnight. Usually your lift isn't that great for hours. And then on the other side too is even though the sun's going down, like 3 o'clock, things are maybe getting cooler. The ground is still going to be pretty dry, and you may not see recovery until 9, 10 o'clock at night, depending on what the weather's doing. So, and Dixon's last rain, all that good stuff comes into play. So it may take until midnight until you really see the fire effects going the other way, and that's just a tough thing to overcome, even starting like 3 or 4 o'clock.
One of the ways that I approach that is every site is going to be different. It's going to be variable based on the fuel loading, but if we're kind of in that situation, that's where I'll pull in and talk to the agency administrator, talk to the fire boss, the holding boss, and some of the other leadership folks. And we'll get together and we'll discuss what are our options. Do it as a group, I want their input. I don't want to make that call quickly on my opinion. I want to know what they're the ones that are going to have to do the work. So I want to know if they're comfortable with the plan. Whatever we come up with. So it's sort of a group thought process.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned smoke. Smoke is my nemesis. And I'm sure many of you have been to the coast in Florida. Well, that's where I learned the coast in Florida. People everywhere. Smoke, nothing will shut down a program faster than smoking out the wrong people. So yeah, smoke was always a consideration. If we burned later in the day, we certainly had to burn smaller units. We were trying to get everything done while we still had good lift and dispersion. So yeah, a lot of folks would burn late in the day, and then you could just see that, that mixing height drop, and you see, that inversion layer come down, and then the smoke out the whole area. And again, I go back to them. They always blamed it on us. So yeah, I was always concerned about smoke. So yeah, I was really careful starting too late in the day because of that.
Don't see any questions right now. Can you guys give us, and this could be a very long topic, but let's say one good or bad experience as a burn boss that you have, and like a quick lessons learned from that as a burn boss. Think of, like I said, it could turn into a long discussion, but quick lessons learned as a burn boss for maybe somebody up and coming.
So a memorable story that was both sides. Lessons learned, plus it was interesting. We were doing a moderate complexity burn. It wasn't going to be weren't expecting it to be a super hot burn, but it was a woods burn. There was some fuel loading in it. We had probably about 20 people there. Gaggled up, went through the morning briefing, got all of that lined up. He got general briefing, started to break everybody out for their breakout meeting with firing and all that stuff. And as everybody's moving, I looked up and our state rep is part of the briefing that I didn't know was going to be there. So it caught me off guard a little bit. And then we had a good conversation. He knew we were burning and he just wanted to see what it was all about. So we talked and the lesson learned of it was I don't want to say I had to think on my feet per se, but that's one of those things that comes up that you don't plan for, that you have to be ready to act on. And it was a very positive experience. Luckily I had a burn boss trainee that could kind of run the burn, and I basically became the information officer and kind of took him around as the burn was going throughout the day and explained stuff to him. He got to see firsthand knowledge, what we were doing, why we were doing it, showing, they're doing these firing patterns, we're expecting to get. So it was I guess the lesson learned of it was, take that opportunity when you can get it. We got a lot of good PR out of it. He has a very active Facebook page. He was very positive. And then as a side note, he had his son with him. So we scrambled and got Nomex for both of them. And then as we were walking around the unit, got up to the road, I commandeered one of our engines and put them in the truck when they had to leave and took them down the road, turned the lights and sirens on. Tried to suck his son into the fire.
Yeah, bad memories. They're all smoke. Every one of them I've used at least a year of my life. But one in particular that kind of goes back to just being flexible with burn units and burn plans. And it was after your hurricane Ian was a direct impact on our area. We were seeing early on just extreme fire behavior. And we had like hardwood hammocks that typically we burn 50 to 100 years fires. We got to shift, but we got to burn. It's, if we miss a year, it's very detrimental. So we decided to shift. And we have a lot of our units habitat can burn every 2 to 4 years. So we have to actually shift it. We were doing really early returns on a lot of units. So 16, 18 months. I'm thinking we're just gonna lessen that fire effects and fire behavior, and still felt we can meet our objectives. So we had a reserve that was surrounding our landfill. So about a 5,000 acre reserve, and it was really good fire behavior, but we just had an enormous amount of residual smoke. This was a unit that had a lot of burns. We would have never anticipated this. And I knew when I was leaving, I could just see that person kind of coming down and just seeing all that residual smoke just wouldn't go away. And we still had good winds over the evening, but I'm sure all you know, winds are light. That means they're going to be light and variable. I don't ever trust light and variable winds. So the next morning, I'm coming in and it's driving, everything's looking good. And I make that last bend to go in towards, I have to go through the landfill area first to get to the reserve. And my visibility is not the end of my pickup truck. And the landfill opens at 8 o'clock and we already got like waste management trucks starting to line up. I quickly found out what 18-minute delay starting the landfill, how much the waste management definitely knows how much that cost them. And I quickly found out as well. So yeah, I mean, after that, the rest of the season, we focused on just continued focused on early return on some units. We went to some prairie units where we knew we wouldn't have residual. We were burning units that we had burned 11 months prior. So yeah, just kind of be flexible. Smoke, again, it's my nemesis, and light variable winds.
Yeah, so my most memorable experience in Lucky Fishing for clerical wildfire on state 60 a couple years ago in the fall. We had a prescribed fire that was relatively small. The day before, everything went great. We left the unit, came back in the morning, there was a column, pretty severe column. By the time we got there, it was myself, FFT2, that were basically bring. So we had no resources on site whatsoever. Long story short, we did get that fire under control after VFDs from 4 counties over, came and blocked up the game plans for it. It was a mess, but we did get that one under control. It was so memorable of an experience, and there's so many things that I could take away from that. I don't want to say anything bad about sand tables, but they only go so far for training opportunities. I learned from a real world experience, and that was a truly real world experience on what to do when income resources are coming from all over the place, and try to point to a couple things as to lessons learned. Try and get started on the right foot when those resources are coming in, because if you're taking good notes and giving direction, you have that ability to do so. That'll help you in the long run. If it's a mess from the start, it's probably going to be a mess until you can get control of that situation from the beginning. That's the best that I can advise.
Good. Yeah, thanks for sharing those, guys. Question back there, Dan?
Do you guys ever struggle with upper management support implementing prescribed fire?
No, never. I struggle a little bit more with deciding to use a landscape scale versus smaller. No, we do definitely. I will say the game commission has aggressive strategic plans to get fire on the landscape. So we're not tasked with wildfire suppression either. So we're a little bit we're able to go after prescribe on that.
For me, it's, depends on the person. It's all about conversations. Have those, you're going into another area as a burn boss, whoever that agency administrator is, you need to talk to them. Make sure let them know what your plan is to make sure that they're good. We want them to buy it. There's, over the years, some of those conversations where if I had some concerns about weather, fire behavior, I'll explain it. Maybe some of the mitigations that we were thinking about doing, if we still think we want to do it. It is a struggle.
Yeah, for me, my previous job, absolutely not. That was my focus. I didn't have a lot of experience with TNC position, and I'm very fortunate. Absolutely no issues. Both at just the TNC organizational level, they were early on like components of fire, and then at the state level, I think a lot of you folks know Pat and Jenny, and probably learned fire from Pat and Jenny. So yeah, our local business unit is very supportive. So I'm not seeing any of that.
I will still want to go back. I will say we had a prescribed burn planned several years ago. We had a wildfire the day before that we had to go back and take care of, make sure we were on it until like 9 o'clock that night. And I was like, well, we're not going to prescribe burn model. I called the district forest and he's like, oh no, we got a plan. As long as you can still pull it off, it just.
Question here, Mike?
Yeah, this is a little bit more of a comment, but I was intrigued by the conversation earlier about just the timing of birds, afternoons, mornings, what if the conditions change? And, I think it's an important thing to acknowledge that, well, first, the thing that makes prescribed burning different than wildfire burning is that you're choosing the pace of the fire. You're choosing the time you're burning for an objective, with all the planning in the world. But that said, if you take the ignitions class, I think it's S219, and you'll draw all kinds of dots and dashes on a map, and that's the way the fire's gonna go, right? It always goes like that, right? No, it never goes like that. You might need, you're constantly adjusting the pace of your fire to meet your objective. And your objective isn't just like a silvicultural objective. Your objective can be like, I need to have this black line done by 11 o'clock in the morning, or else we're going to fail today because like wind's going to change or conditions are going to change. And so, I think in my experience, and I've been on hundreds of prescribed burns, but I'm not an RXP2. But usually if we're, you can burn into the part of the day and often you go out of prescription, but you're not tying something in. You're not lighting a whole lot of fire when everything's like in the witching hour. You want to be able to sit back and just let it do its thing at that time of day, and that's all right. But you've got to build your way there. And so from the start of the morning, you're thinking about where do I have to be by 2 o'clock, and where do I not want to be? And then, like a lot of times the fire will just be finishing up at 4 o'clock, but we didn't really have to do a whole lot between noon and 4 because it was all, we had everything kind of boxed in and it just kind of did its thing. And so, but that pace doesn't get talked about very much in the, academic training fire and about how ignitions are used, your lighting stuff. Well, that's the art part of fire. There's like the science and the art of it. And, I think that, for anybody new who's in the audience, think about the pace of the fire, think about where you're going. It's like, you're pushing the gas pedal, but sometimes, you don't want to be like flooring it when you're going downhill because you want to just coast down the hill at the right speed. And a lot of times when we light stuff in the afternoon, we burn a lot of private ground, like little private parcels, 30 or so here or there in the afternoon. And, if the conditions are going down at night, you can really fly through them a lot faster because the window's closing. And, but the worst thing is you don't want to end your burn, you don't want to run out of, you don't want the window to close before you get everything lit off. And then have like some, green still to burn the next day, and who knows who you got available in conditions. And, so that pace part of prescribed burning and conditions is a piece that gets left out of a lot of the formal training. But it's something that, it's ignition isn't just one time in the morning. It's like I said, it's not a dot or a line and then you sit and watch it all day. It's a thing that you're constantly pushing the gas pedal, letting off it all day to get to your comfortable spot. So anyway, just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. I'll even add on that, oftentimes I'd have just kind of like turn points, like I'd want to be this particular volume done at this time. And then I had some folks that work for me, a retired professor, who say, well, how fast do you want me to this point? I'm like, well, hold back. Like, I want you to go as fast as you safely can. Like, fire. I don't want to give you a time, right? Because there's so much variability, so much, it's unpredictable. So, but I certainly had that kind of the trigger point. Like, I wanted to have it kind of tied in by a certain time. And it was mostly for smoke dispersal. That was going to shut our program down. And we built a lot of our anchor points early on, so we weren't as concerned. We didn't have to go quite as slow. But yeah, my favorite comment from crew is, I'm bored. Like, yeah, that's fantastic. I love it.
When they say they're bored, that's what's up with that. To kind of touch back on the time of day, how to adjust for the weather. So I'll go back to Eric's presentation about that trophy. So I was the burn boss on that burn. And in timing the, pulling in the lines, and we had 2 different fire groups, so they had to be working together from a timing perspective. And everything was good. The weather was good. The winds were not super great, but they weren't horrible. And we were having difficulty, not difficulty, but we were having to work at meeting the objectives as we get started. And shortly thereafter, I mean, we just started picking up spots, more spots, in places that I didn't expect spots to happen. It's like that now, it's like 11:30 or so in the morning. So I'm getting a lot of spots. Then within 30 minutes, we had 2 of our engines go down. We had a UTV issue, and I'm like, this is not good. So, you know, I pulled the agency administrator together with the firing boss. You know, we had a discussion. I had already made my mind up. We were going to have to fire up. Even though at that point we were in prescription, the fire behavior was still meeting objectives. We were in the weather prescription, but just the holes in the Swiss cheese were just lining up. And we were coming into the hotter part of the day. This is going to be a problem. So we decided to hang it up and ended up still spotting within the unit. We burnt the entire unit unintentionally, but it was more, the second part of it was more defensive. But the plan was we're gonna, even though we're in prescription, we're still gonna hang it up. It's just not, just things not going.
Good. Any last comments or questions?
The only thing I would add to a question I was asked earlier about pushback. I think one of the reasons why we don't have a pushback is because we don't just willy-nilly throw fire on the landscape, right? So we're following plans. Foresters have objectives. They're usually the ones writing those burn plans. So as long as the field forester, the assistant regional forester, and the regional forester agrees with it, I don't see why any upper management. So we get tremendous support from Harrisburg, Central Office.
Me too. And I think if we try and tie this all back to upcoming burn bosses or those newer CPBMs that are working their way up to be like these guys, or a lot of burn bosses in the room here today, like really reach out to those burn bosses, those experienced guys that have all this wealth of knowledge and experience, and really try and shadow them and train underneath them and pick their brain. Maybe even after a burn or a fire is over, if you guys can sit down and kind of AAR, even on a small scale, really look at results, or why did we do it this way? You might not be able to get that information from them on burn day because there's a lot going on. But if you guys can work with that mentor or those burn bosses and really learn from them, I would really encourage all of you to do that for sure. Thank you guys. We'll give these guys a round of applause.